The film kicks off with our protagonist, Jim Dodge, engrossed in a newspaper. Jim exudes confidence, fancying himself as having life all figured out. Yet, the truth paints a different picture. He's clueless. We witness Jim's monologues to a pack of dogs at his workplace, where he takes pride in his knack for fabricating stories on the fly. Jim's verbosity surpasses his productivity, leaving even the canines weary of his antics. His reputation precedes him. Labeled as all talk and no action, he finds himself ousted from yet another job, spinning tales about cow hearts and pet shelters, ultimately leading to his dismissal. While recounting his dismissal, Jim embellishes his tale to a group of children, painting himself as a wealthy tycoon in the animal industry, boasting about his fleet of cars and staff. However, it's all fabrication, spun for the ears of innocents who won't question his fanciful claims. Jim's incessant chatter alienates those around him, accustomed to receiving cold shoulders wherever he goes. Later, at a restaurant, he regales the waitstaff with tales of exotic cuisine he's supposedly sampled. Now unemployed and desperate for work, Jim pleads for a job at a gas station, despite having been fired by the owner multiple times before. He offers to work without pay, but even this plea falls on deaf ears. Disheartened, the owner suggests Jim seek opportunities elsewhere, prompting him to consider leaving town. Just as Jim prepares to depart, fate intervenes in the form of Josie, a beautiful and affluent girl. As the sleek car carrying Josie pulls up, Jim adopts a gentlemanly demeanor, catching her eye. Josie seems charmed by Jim's fabricated persona, giggling and waving from her seat. However, their budding connection is interrupted by Jim's father, Bud Dodge, who appears frustrated with his son's lack of responsibility. Confronted about his job status, Jim lies to his father, claiming he wasn't fired but rather resigned. Bud, unconvinced, escorts Jim home, not the first impression Jim hoped to make on Josie. During dinner that evening, Jim's sister mentions Josie's departure for New York, but Jim insists he saw her earlier that day, even fabricating a coffee encounter. His father, surprised, later reveals to the family that Jim has lost his job again and can't afford the rent. The following morning, Bud, infuriated by Jim's laziness, drives him to Target, threatening relocation to St. Louis with his gardening uncle if he doesn't secure employment. Jim, unhappy with the ultimatum, attempts emotional manipulation, questioning his father's desire to push him out of his life. After dropping Jim off at the mall, his father clarifies that he simply wants him out of the house, not out of his life. Inside, Jim interviews for a job, but the mall director mistakenly assumes he's there for a different position. Jim goes along with the confusion, not bothering to correct him. Upon Josie's entrance, her father instructs her to greet the men. To his astonishment, Josie surprises him by kissing one of the gentlemen on the lips. After the meeting concludes and the men depart, Josie's father, Roger, immediately visits her room, cautioning her against repeating her earlier behavior. That same night, 2 men are caught stealing a car. The next day, Jim surprises everyone once again by hiring a limo to take him to work. He encounters the children he usually regales with his fabricated tales. Jim spins a yarn about heading to the airport to catch a flight to Paris for a meeting with the Vice President of Bulgaria. Meanwhile, Josie is also at the mall, engaging in shoplifting after hours. When Jim arrives at his workplace, he assumes a boss-like demeanor with the other employees who remain unaware of his identity. The head custodian approaches Jim, detailing his responsibilities. From cleaning the coffee maker to ensuring the entire mall is spotless. Shocked by the extent of his duties, Jim is taken aback. After the custodian departs, locking Jim inside for the night, Jim protests, realizing he'll be alone in the mall. However, his pleas fall on deaf ears as the custodian drives away, leaving only the aisle lights on to save on electricity costs. After some time, Jim resigns himself to his task and begins cleaning, albeit encountering difficulties with some of the equipment. During a break, he indulges in snacks from the store but soon grows bored. He decides to call his parents to discuss Christmas plans, but they abruptly end the call due to the late hour. Seeking diversion, Jim explores the mall and finds amusement in playing drums. Encountering a pair of roller skates, he dons them and glides through the empty corridors. Spotting Josie, he's taken aback and ends up tumbling over some items in the mall. Meanwhile, Josie's father reports her missing at the police station, prompting a search for her. Josie explains to Jim that she fell asleep in the mall, admitting to contemplating arrest for shoplifting before changing her mind. She confides in Jim, expressing her unhappiness with her father's unpleasant demeanor. Jim's hunger prompts him to utilize the mall's microwave, preparing a meal for both himself and Josie. During their meal, Jim mentions that his father worked as the cement contractor responsible for pouring the pool at Josie's house. Josie, noticing Jim's incessant chatter, curious if he always talks so much, to which Jim surprisingly responds in the negative. Josie suggests that Jim consider a career in sales, deeming it a better fit for his conversational skills. Jim admits to attempting sales before, albeit unsuccessfully. After their meal, they engage in conversation, during which Jim boasts about his preference for expensive cigarettes after eating, while Josie reveals that she's dubbed the town liar. Initially perturbed by this revelation, Jim quickly brushes it off, resuming his loquacious demeanor. Josie remarks on the remaining cleaning tasks, but Jim dismisses her concerns, sitting ample time until morning. Josie then confesses her plan to steal goods, hoping to get arrested and escape her despised father's grip. She reflects on Jim's seemingly fortunate life, contrasting it with her own dissatisfaction. However, Jim refutes the notion, expressing his own unhappiness with his job as a night cleaner. Offended by Josie's apparent criticism, Jim returns to his cleaning duties. As he works, Josie switches on some rock music, prompting Jim to dance along. However, when Josie notices his enjoyment, she abruptly turns off the music. Using the PA system, she challenges Jim to be honest about his aspirations and whether he's content living with his parents. Jim defends his earlier statements, insisting he wasn't lying, prompting Josie to emerge from hiding. They engage in a candid conversation about their desires and shortcomings. Jim admits to fabricating aspects of his life, while Josie reveals her desire to escape her oppressive father by resorting to theft. They discuss their shared fear of independence. Agreeing that it's the fear of living alone that holds them back, Josie proposes they leave town and start afresh in California, initially met with reluctance from Jim. However, when she divulges the extent of her father's mistreatment, Jim relents. Josie discloses she has $52,000 in her purse, suggesting they use it to flee and begin anew. The duo agrees to flee in the morning, celebrating with a dance that culminates in a kiss. However, their moment is interrupted by the arrival of Josie's father and the sheriff, who inquire about Josie's whereabouts. Jim fibs, denying any knowledge of Josie's presence. Despite the intrusion, Jim and Josie continue to enjoy each other's company as they await daybreak. Amidst their merriment, two burglars manage to break into the mall. While skating, Jim and Josie inadvertently knock out the intruders. The thieves confront Jim and Josie, demanding they surrender. Jim, using wit and a fake gun, forces the thieves to relinquish their weapons, only to realize the guns are actually loaded. Josie, employing her charms, persuades one of the crooks to drive her away after the robbery. Meanwhile, Jim arms himself with a shotgun, leading the thieves to the back of the store, where he holds them at gunpoint. In the morning, the police officer discovers the tied-up crooks, while Jim and Josie make their escape. The scene shifts to the duo relaxing by a pool in Hollywood, concluding their escapade. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more movie recaps.